provide opportunities. In my live streaming, I often send the link to my friends, and it's manipulatable. It can also send through as PDF document. So the visuality does provide opportunities. Then the visual paradigm put by Rao is the idea of looking at the total space, total environment of it through the visuality of live streaming and the live event of black booking. So I think that provides a coverage and moments of experimentation. Yes, thank you so much for. Now, what is the usefulness of the critique for a cartography of graffiti? I think more than there's a question in terms of on what ground can we establish the connection between hip hop, philosophy, and graffiti's practices? And what is the usefulness of the study of graffiti within visual art, post-colonial, and globalization? My prediction is that thinking through graffiti being a new media demands an approach of discussive formation through a network of practices. Make a claim that graffiti's interdisciplinarity is its integral nature, quoting White there. The fragmentary nature of graffiti's discussive formation is impacted by the digital process of new media. We have already gone through this, but Victor Babel, he speaks about cinema today is so cinematic. Cinematic is the idea of cinematic is something that is fragmented. We encounter cinema through posters, through clips, through different spaces. It's not purely based on. So I think I like to look at that, into problematizing the image of graffiti as fragmented in different spheres of visual culture. And I think the apparatus, the idea of apparatus in Foucault, it's very productive to look at graffiti. The graffiti is network apparatus, and the interconnectivity within the apparatus itself can suggest new ways, new definition, and just to go through the last point here. So I suggest that this non-linear analysis demand making a judgment about the body, to suspend judgment, but also to offer new values based on the very same suspension, quoting Badger. I sympathize with Foucault and critique as a strategy in my attempt at disregarding. Critique is a strategy, forming links, disregarding, look at possibilities and moments. So I think that's what critique is. It is like in this interdisciplinary space where there's possibilities to adapt, to forge new alliances and create new marriages. Through my own life experience in Johannesburg-based visual artist and filmmaker, I provide moments of my own life as an interdisciplinary creative, provide moments of uncertainties, instabilities, unpredictability, multi-directional shift, through ways of which graffiti, black work, and moral streaming situate the body at an isolation. So this suggests that there's no ready-made theories on graffiti to question regarding graffiti scholarship. And I then suggest an experimental mode using my own body and everything. And the moment of unpredictability, of where we cannot prophesize, I think they can then. I would like to think for grounding through the body. It's very. It can be productive. So my own knowledge as an interdisciplinary artist and aspiring visual scholar, and a hip hop scholar, writer, for ground my intention for the use of this conceptual methodology of the body and the methodology and the conceptual, this conceptual frameworks and conceptual methodology. Yeah. Through my writer's body, I critique the construction of knowledge and power relations in the formation of subjectivity through Grafiti's Black Book and the application of getting up. My body performativity will reveal embedded ways in which Grafiti's conceptual methodology generates its own meaning and can point into some of the limitations in thinking about graffiti along binary lines of illegal and legality, art, crime, delinquency, master art. So the body will possibly provide. But again, this body is situated within the new media, what Sarah Mahara called the gray environments, domination, which changes the way of which we work. We work on things. Yeah. So now there is a part here where it's proposing as a problem space to say that a meta theory study of graffiti as a visual element of hip hop permits ways of thinking about graffiti's interconnectivity to our contemporary crisis and stability. I propose the popular culture of hip hop as a problem space. So positioning graffiti practices constituted within the rules and game of hip hop can be useful in analyzing the current status as a visual medium and decolonize the meaning of graffiti. So in demanding the contextualization of graffitis within hip hop, I'm also connecting my intention, subjectivity, and imagination with the political practices of control and force within or without culture. Here I'm trying to say that I'm also responding to our own internal rules as a graffiti artist. So in essence, this is to say that hip hop can be a productive space to speak through graffiti. Also, the appropriation of hip hop, of graffiti by hip hop is very recent. Keres One speaks about hip hop starting in 1973. You know, when Cool Herc, the Jamaican, brought the sound system to the Bronx in 1973. But graffiti, you know, through the history of the movement, of the popular movement, pop culture, we can say aspects of graffiti, modern rebirth, we can trace them to the 60s. So I think hip hop, because of the stance that it makes about graffiti, appropriating graffiti as a visual element. You know, myself also being, you know, a follower of hip hop and a listener of hip hop, you know, having been into hip hop for more than 25 years, I think it's productive for me to speak about something that is much closer to my experience. But also I think the gospel which I'm bringing, the gospel of hip hop by Keres One, which is like a canon, it also needs to be provoked for the statement and the claims that it makes about hip hop. I would also like to think about it as also propagating a narration of liberation, you know, maybe considering the time of which it was written. So it also can be an object of criticism, but it will be productive for the object of this essay to speak about graffiti from the side from hip hop. Thank you so much. I wish I could go through most of the notes, but it's there on, I think the prof has circulated it, and I would like to, I can appreciate to get the responses from everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Charles. So, are there any responses, questions for Charles? Yeah.
Maybe I'll start by saying that I learned a lot
would like a clarity. You talk about the black book, post apartheid, and other than what scholars have said about graffiti, were there students, what are you saying? And how's what you are doing part of the paper? And maybe just speak a little about the black book and post apartheid, what you do.
Thanks, Kolodi. I think post-apartheid, it marks the moment of liberation for us, or what we assume as liberation for South Africa. So now it's marked by the release of Nelson Mandela, the detainees. There's a history that is, but the scholars have a different interpretation, a more intense, drawing from what this moment represented for us. So I use post-apartheid, post-94, just to mark that entry into a new way of working things. But also I problematize it when I suggest the post-Mandela and suggest for us to revisit the decolonial concept of Frantz Fanon. So the idea of a black book, I think it is a very key object in graffiti writing. It's like a sketchbook. So it is black because the cover is black. It does not have any meaning beyond that. So it is like a Bible that graffiti writers will utilize to write their names, to put pictures, to draw inspiration. I've looked at Mocha's graffiti black book. It has got some of the fine art impression. It's not. It doesn't have one style. It shows the movement of style. And I think through graffiti's Hocha's book, I have learned that he was also a fine artist. So it is a space of exploration for artists. So in most scholastic analysis, the black book hasn't been made an object of analysis. So when I was getting into a space and it was suggested, to look beyond, just literally, and to look beyond the artworks. I think it was charming to look at the black book. So I look at my graffiti. It's the graffiti of KRS-One, the graffiti of hip hop, the name writing. I'm coming from that school, of KRS-One, underground hip hop. So me, graffiti is a way of promoting one's names. But if you look at the rationale in terms of what brings me here, it's an incident whereby I've written a piece at Back to the City, and it was not it was considered as if it was unfinished. And my reality was, I sort of like challenged, because before I have thought of myself as a writer like all the writers, but then there were, my work was defined differently from other works, which I think motivate my, undertaking this study to say, what is graffiti and how do we speak about graffiti in post-94? Does it still carry the message of hip hop, which is what I'm about, or is there different ways? But in essence, I am from the school of KRS-One, the school of graffiti being an element, a visual element of hip hop. Love, peace, and happiness. KRS-One says, if it's not about love, peace, and happiness, it is not about hip hop. So that is why also you realize that there's less about race and, in my working, because that is the true message of hip hop. That's what brings all the kids from across geography and histories. Love, peace, and happiness. Thanks. If there's more questions, sure.
BFF that you're trying to conceptualize that whole process. It's a very so that's part of the experience I'm really now to. So that's the first one. Second, I want to entertain the idea of the settlements that you established. That there was a pre-democracy South Africa, there's a post-94, then there's the post-Mandela kind of era. That's the 40s kind of colonial thought that moves around. And I'm particularly interested in that kind of point. The decolonial period in itself, that to me, at least in terms of graffiti, it's very signified by a very popular that's going around the country of the land, which speaks to the current discourse of the country, the current thinking, which, of course, I'm going to talk about it. Where's the country? Where is the country? So I'd like to make a reflection on that kind of thinking to consider that graffiti. Well, what is the impact of such a thing? What stage has that then give to this very art form of graffiti itself? Then my final one that I'd like you to talk to is graffiti seemingly exists in the margins of life. It seems like it's a traditional kind of where it's either criminalized. So at what point or how do we then invoke the artness of it, the intrinsic being of graffiti to say, look, this is an art form beyond any other art form, or it's an art form same as any other art form in itself. Of course, considering the implications of the criminality of it. Or I think those are pertinent questions for you to say, how do we then not push these kind of artists to the themselves? Where, considering also resources, how do we then accommodate this art with all resource implications and all the communities? So I believe that I just look at those.
Yeah, thank you so much. So there's been good writing in terms of like many good texts that has come regarding South Africa's graffiti, Johannesburg. One of them is Penfold, which I do speak about here. Speak about graffiti, the West End graffiti. The only challenge that I have with it is the way of mapping. She speaks more about class. Graffiti is being today practiced by kids from the northern suburbs who go to the south, and living some, the dynamics, because there's a lot of south graffiti going to the north and the other way, and graffiti is something that travels. So there is writing. Most of the writing has been written most of the research has been conducted from schools other than the visual art, criminology, sociology, which is, what interested me to Sarah Maharaj's text, as a way of thinking. So there has been good text, but it has not been articulated, which brings problems of binaries, problems of criminal, problems of psychology of the writer, So just to say also, the idea of madness, it's a way of mapping graffiti. Madness using Foucault, way of cartographing. Foucault's attempt of speaking the voice of the unvoiced. The writer is being that delinquency, the post-colonial other. Muhammad speaks about it here. The creation of the political identities using law of segregation, using law of movement. When I wouldn't want to go to to those specific, but I think my paper's attempt is to provoke. So post 94 is to trigger those thoughts, to think about the tree. So yeah, Black Thought we've seen Black Thought around and the message. It came during Fees Must Fall. It's a message. You know, today's graffiti, we've seen a lot of pieces, money being invested, but there's no message. So, it's also what motivated me to do this paper, the message. Does graffiti still have to carry a message, or can graffiti be for graffiti's sake? So more than anything, I'm trying to bring questions, and I'm trying to expose my vulnerability and my own contradictions and my own biases, you know, more than bringing preconceived ideas into this. So it is work in process. I look at this master's as an intermediary process. It's work in the plagiary.
Thank you. Can we take two more questions together?
Yeah.
And then we have to both respond as well.
Thanks.
So, shall we address it?
Not necessarily a question, just some thoughts maybe. So one of them is kind of a question in terms of it felt like when I was reading, I didn't read the whole proposal, so it might come up later, but it felt like the digital aspect was quite important, but I didn't get the full scope of what the digital element brought to the work. So yes, we were live streaming, but I didn't get the importance of what that was, and it felt like it was the digital component was quite important, and the manipulation element and play element. So I didn't get the full importance of what the digital the digital scope and the digital community aspect brought up to the point that I think. So I think maybe more explication of what, especially in you speaking about the criminalization of these acts, what having an online digital community offers when you have to be anonymous, perhaps, or what putting up your work on that platform means to an online community. I also in reading the proposal, so I'm speaking as an academic hat on, right? There was, as a scholar, it felt like there was too much universalization of the graffiti discourse, so that there was not enough local particularities of graffiti, right? In terms of not just South African graffiti, but in terms of Joburg graffiti community, okay, and the community that you're part of. So graffiti was spoken in general, and I think what is needed is the nuances of particular graffiti communities, and there's also kind of the nuances between, because there is a lot of South African writing on murals. Okay, so people like Sabina Marshall and stuff that have written books and a lot of articles on murals. Also how that kind of porosity that has existed between sort of the South African department commissioning, particularly at the end of apartheid, going into post-apartheid, commissioning murals across the country in social awareness campaigns, commissioning graffitis. So how that transnet all of that community commissioning graffiti. So at times when it's convenient to commission these kinds of things, but those are not the kinds of things you're interested in, right? But I think it's establishing that that's not the kind of things you're interested in. I think what's super interesting about your study is a kind of the very sustained methodology that's coming through. Black book, which is the form, street calligraphy, which is a style of writing, hip pop vocabulary which you are using, like the black resistance vocabulary, your black subjective position, and the black economics, and then the digital community that's speaking to this. So there's very sustained holisticness to what you're doing there in terms of blackness, and the ways in which each one of those speak to each other and is creating a sustained resistance community. But in terms of, I think sometimes it takes too long to get to that holistic position. And I think that needs to come through a lot quicker in a proposal. We tend to speak to a lot of whiteness to get through there. Like if you go through a lot of white people to get through to that position.
Before you respond, Tracy, you can respond as you speak and round up the session.
I'm not really sure how to frame this, but it's, and I hadn't thought about it before in our previous conversation, but this clarifying question back in the relationship of not just hip hop and graffiti to South Africa, but to South African history. And that moment, and the because that seems to be documented is here as one of these lectures. We talked about when Africa Bambata came to the one-day competition as a gang leader, came to South Africa, and he wrote about the Bambata rebellion and uprising, like South African history, and he went back to New York, and he rearranged it sounds almost mythological, that he arranges all of these gang leaders together, and they start what is essentially becomes hip-hop, and the 5 pillars of hip-hop, graffiti, breakdancing, rap, scratching together, DJing, and how instrumental that is to building a community that essentially becomes global. But then that whole journey turns back, and all of that culture comes back to South Africa, and then you talking about it now in an academic context. I think that you need to speak about that root of that journey. Because I think that's sort of kind of ground the relationship between that African American experience that comes back to Africa and then goes back and then kind of infiltrates globally.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you, Prof. Thank you, Tracy. Thank you, Prof. Thank you, everyone, for the notes. Yeah, I've made notes in terms of how, like, the significance of the digital within this research, like to bring it back together. And yeah, I've taken notes. Oh, I wanted to say that there is a site that I wanted to bring the back to the city, which is I've experienced the side of spectacle, where writers they're commissioned to do murals on the wall. So there was an event where, just to reenact, where my piece was sort of like problematized. The discussion carried on in the social media. It was, us inboxing each other and like, this guy saying, no, your piece is unfinished. And I moved it to the public. It will be included as part of the artistic practice, just to bring it, just to speak back to the idea of how these emerging communities of graffiti are playing a significant role. So thank you so much also, Tracy, for the journey, and in the spirit of the journey, to bring it, to knit it, back into, I think Prof is right to say there is been a struggle with languages, of matching thoughts with, and trying to find words that link. So it is noted, and I suggest, like, when I present the submission, when I submit on the 27th of October, a TPO, a more comprehensive one, then have those notes in. Wow. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming through. Thank you.
Didn't answer Colin's question. He was like, but for you, what is graffiti? No, I'm going to talk Foucault. This one.
That's what Shani said. Or is it an academic speak that you always need to resurrect what you are doing?
Not to think. Because that
all kind of like content management, right? I think it's
that's like the most specific. Yeah, I mean, yes.
Oh, wow.
Hey, I'm with yourself. You know who you look like? Goody Lake. You know Goody Lake? Yeah, he looks a goodie. I was like, oh, he looks a goodie.
Good night. Yeah, thanks, man.
Oh, what's it, John?
Ah, you
No, no.
Unin,